It seems like we've had to wait years for this car to come along, but finally it's here, the production version of the Volkswagen ID Buzz. It is a car that's already almost iconic with people. The ID Buzz, like all of the other Volkswagen ID cars, is made on the modular MEB platform. In this version, it has a 77 kilowatt hour battery, and that's good for a driving range of between 403 and 423 kilometers. It has a single motor on the rear axle, and that has 204 horsepower and 310 newton meters. So the same sort of performance as you'll get from a Volkswagen ID4. One of the big appeals of this ID Buzz is its face. It's such a friendly design. When we're used to bigger and more aggressive looking SUVs, this thing just makes people smile when they see it, especially in this two-tone design. Obviously there's the huge Volkswagen logo. It's a great homage to the original, but it's got a lot of modern features. You've got this really mesh-like intake here. This channels air around through the bumper, out through the front wheels as well, improves the airflow and helps eke out that little bit of range. You've got these slim headlights with the latest ID light technology and this huge wraparound windscreen. The fact that this is all a glass panel as well means you've got great visibility, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get out on the road. You've got sliding doors. They are electrically operated, so that's very useful for those with families and with kids. As we come around the back, you've got great proportions. You can see it side on, how the wheels are stretched out, gives a real sense of length to the car. And like we've seen with other Volkswagens, around the back you have a full width light bar as well. Again, the huge Volkswagen logo and ID Buzz. And in this color scheme, it really does look great. Boot space, well, that's very practical as well. Just over 1100 litres as standard. This has the raised floor in it. You can take this out. You can also fold down the rear seats and do all that. You'll double that boot space up to 2200 litres. So there's lots of room. Bear in mind as well, there's also going to be a longer wheelbase version, which will have a 7-seat option and even a camper van. So there's going to be a real great family in the ID Buzz. Up the front, it has a really interesting and good driving position. I say interesting because even though it has this really big windscreen, you do sit a little bit further back, but your visibility outwards is excellent, partly because you have this big split A-pillar as well, so you really do get a very good view, and you do sit that little bit higher as well, something SUV lovers always like, but this does feel a little bit more like you're sitting in a van, so you can see everything that goes on all around you. The steering wheel and the driving position itself, well, there's a huge amount of adjustability. This seat is electrically adjustable, forward, back, up or down. Also, the steering wheel has quite a good amount of adjustment as well, and you'll see that that instrument cluster moves with the steering wheel. Everything is all on this. The drive selector is a little bit different to what we see on the ID3, so it's not attached to the instrument cluster. It's a separate toggle here, and you've got your wipers and lights and indicators all on the other side. You still have that digital instrument display in front of you. It's very simple, it's very elegant, just shows you all the essentials you need. The steering wheel is the usual Volkswagen 3-spoke affair that has these haptic touch sensitive buttons, which I'm not a fan of. They do take a little bit of getting used to. Owners living with this car after a while probably will, but if you just jump in for the first time, you may find them a little bit confusing to use. There's two different touchscreen displays available. This is the larger one. It looks great. It's in a good position. It's not too low, but it's also not too high. You've got capacitive buttons here, so you can adjust your temperature, you can adjust your volume, all that, and you've got shortcut buttons across the front as well. The infotainment system is continually being updated, so this is something that will be updated over the air. There's a lot of storage, as you would expect, throughout this car. The dashboard display, you've got a big open area here. You've got a large enough glove box, although that may get a little bit smaller on right-hand drive models. You've also got pop out two more cup holders here, which is a handy little bit of extra space. Two USB charge ports in here. My only gripe with these is that you're going to have cables going somewhere when you plug things in, so that's a little bit annoying. But there's a large console here in the center, which again is versatile, so you can change this around depending on how you want it to be laid out. You've got a cup in there, and you can leave some odds and ends in there as well. Overall, the color, the quality, the feel, it's what you would expect from any new Volkswagen. It's pretty good. There's a nice airy feeling in here, and that's something that a lot of people are going to like about this car. In the back, there's a lot of space, as you would expect. I'm about 5'9". I've got loads of headroom here. This driving position is set up from my usual driving position, and I've still got a lot of knee room here. As you can see, I can get my feet in underneath the seat in front if I do need to stretch out, and this seat bench can also slide forward and back. So if we do want to pull forward, if you need more boot space or more leg room, you have a lot of different space here that you can adjust it for. Also, the rear can also recline, so you can lay back a little bit further if you want on a longer journey. So there's a lot of practicality in that respect. You've got some pouches here on top of the seats, so you can put your devices in there if you're charging. There's also USB-C charge ports in each of the sliding doors. That's pretty nifty. And there's even a pop-up table as well. Kids always love those. You've got pockets in the backs of the seats. But really, you've got nice big windows in here, and it's generally a pretty comfortable place to be. Both of the rear outer seats have ISOFIX mounting points, and usefully, this center seat is a little bit wider than you're going to get in your normal car, so it is a little bit more useful as well. It's been a long time coming, but this is quite exciting actually. It's the first time we're driving the Volkswagen ID Buzz. And the first thing you notice with this car is the driving position, how you're seated. You're up high, you can see everything, and also you have this huge glass house in front of you. What's kind of surprising is that the windscreen is further away than you think it is. When you see it from the outside, you think maybe like in the old style buses that you were sitting up quite close to it, but it is quite far away. Nevertheless, visibility is superb. Huge big front quarter glass here as well. It splits the A-pillar, so it means you have very good visibility, and the door mirrors aren't actually all that big, and they're set relatively low but not too low, so it's all pretty good. The only thing is the rear view mirror you can't really see a whole lot out of, especially if you're going to have people in the back. But the good thing is there's front and rear cameras, so if you are parking, for example, as you turn the steering wheel, the cameras will also tilt, which is quite useful. Okay, first things first, ride quality. This is on some reasonably big wheels, but it soaks up everything quite well. It's got a multi-link axle on the rear, and that does give it a bit more stability. Earlier on, we've done about 90 kilometers so far across a variety of different situations and scenarios, including motorways, and it really does feel quite planted, very sure-footed. It doesn't feel like you're driving a van. This doesn't feel like the likes of a Citroen Berlingo or a Vivaro E or anything like that. That is a passengerized version of a van. This is definitely much more car-like, and that would be good news to anybody that maybe had a little bit of a concern about how this car was going to be set up. The suspension has just the right balance between how it's sprung and also how it's damped, so not only how it absorbs the bumps, but what happens immediately afterwards. Even going over speed humps, for example, doesn't feel all that harsh. You're not going to kind of scrunch up waiting for it. Another thing that was quite obvious early on in our drive was that even though it has those big wheels, there's not a lot of road noise. Now, we've seen this in some of the other cars like the ID4 and ID5 where there's quite pronounced road noise. This is nowhere near as obvious on this. Now, we have been on some pretty good road surfaces, but even on the motorway speeds at 90 to 110 kilometers an hour, there's not that much road noise. There is a little bit of wind noise that picks up around 90 kilometers an hour,
mainly around the windows, around the door mirrors. It's not that bad though, but that's one of the only few things that we've picked up on. Speaking of pickup, well, that electric motor does make it feel quite nippy. Any sort of roll-on power, it's definitely quick enough. It's only got 204 horsepower and 310 newton meters. Now I say only because this is a heavy car, but it never feels to struggle under the power. There's more than enough for every situation in urban driving. Even on a motorway speed, it does get up to speed quite quickly, and it will easily cruise without using too much energy. Now, speaking of energy, as I said, we've done the guts of 100 kilometers so far today in it, and we're returning an average of 21.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Now, that has been a combination of all kinds of things, from motorway driving, including that really spectacular bridge between Copenhagen and Malmo. We've done urban city driving, slow stuff, and a little bit out in the countryside. So we've really covered off a gamut of different driving scenarios, and it's returning around 21.6 at the moment now, so it's starting to drop down a little bit. It's not bad, it's not stellar, but this is a big car, so it's not too much to complain about in that respect. And I think that driving range of up to 423 kilometers is going to be relatively attainable. You may find that it's perhaps not quite there, but I think this is easily going to be a car that you're going to see full up with people on a motorway upwards of 300 kilometers. 350 is probably going to be pretty easy to manage. Again, it's entirely down to how you drive. We can only talk about how we've driven this so far. When the car arrives in Ireland, hopefully we'll have it for a little bit longer, and we'll be able to give you more in-depth opinion on what it's like for range. How that power is fed into the rear wheels as well is very, very smooth, very linear. This is a very easy car to drive at very slow speed in traffic if you don't want to use the travel assist function that's available. Maneuverability is important in a car of this size, and you may have noticed that Volkswagen quotes an 11.1 meter turning circle for the ID. Buzz. However, that is for the left-hand drive markets. The right-hand drive model doesn't fare quite as well because of some internal architecture, so it does get a slightly larger 12 meter turning circle. Helping that efficiency is some smart regen. As you come up to slower moving traffic or even stationary traffic, it will use its front sensors and detect that and start to apply some increased levels of regen. Makes it a little bit easier and adds to that one pedal driving sensation that you have with the ID Buzz. It works very, very well, and it just helps add a little bit more energy back into your battery. One thing you might not be prepared for when driving the ID Buzz is just how much attention this thing creates. Everywhere we have driven today, we have turned heads, we have had people rolling down their windows to talk to us, we've had thumbs up, big smiles. I can't remember a car that I've driven in the last couple of years that has created such a similar impression and positive feedback from people. There's just a huge amount of positive sentiment towards this car from people. It's mainly to do with the design. It's just so friendly, and it's so different to many of these aggressively designed SUVs that we have. Leaving aside the fact that it's electric, it's just cute, it's fun. It's a car that you're not going to take that seriously, and I think it's a car that people are going to find fun to live with.
So that's our first drive review of the Volkswagen ID Buzz. It really does seem to live up to the hype, but irrespective of what I think, people will seem to love this car. If you want to know more about it, head over to our website. It's completecar.ie. You'll find it linked in the description below, and please do tell us what you think in the comments section.